Here's a quick introduction to Pythagorean Theorem and a couple practice questions right after. So really quick, Pythagorean Theorem just states if I've got a right triangle that the square of the length of one of the legs plus the square of the length of the other leg, if I add those two together, should equal the square of my hypotenuse. So for example, a very classic one is the 3, 4, 5 triangle. If I take the square of my two legs, so 3 squared plus 4 squared, that will equal to the square of my hypotenuse. Hypotenuse, by the way, is the side that's opposite from my right angle in a right triangle. If I do this, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 9 plus 16 is 25. So Pythagorean theorem works out for this. A more general way of saying the Pythagorean theorem, instead of saying the square of the leg of this, is, I guess it's pretty much saying that, but we use the notation a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the length of my hypotenuse side and a and b are the length of the legs. Because addition you can do in any order, it doesn't matter which leg you choose to be a or b, but the hypotenuse, make sure you're identifying that one correctly. All right, let's do some sample questions. So, by the way, that only works for right triangles. I think I said that, but I want to make sure that's clear. So, for this question, it wants to find the length of the diagonal to the nearest tenth of a unit. Here's a real good use of the Pythagorean theorem. If I want to find the distance from this point over here to this point over here, that's what they mean by finding the diagonal. I can't count because it's along a diagonal. But what I can recognize is that I have a right triangle over here. And this side, I can count how long it is, and I can also count how long that side is. So let's start with that. This side over here, this is the point -1. So I'm starting at -1, and I go up 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to +3. So that means that this side length over here is 4. To find this distance, I just need to count how far it is to go from here to here. -5 to +3. You can do the math, or you can just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I know that side length is 8. Well, it's a right triangle, which means Pythagorean theorem will work. I've got a side length of 4 and a side length of 8. So I know I can use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And in this case, my a and b are 4 and 8. 4 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. 4 squared is 16, 8 squared 64, c squared is still just c squared. 16 and 64 is 70. Is it just straight up 80? Yeah, it is. So this is just 80 is equal to c squared. To get rid of this exponent here, I can do square root. If I do square root on the right side, I should do square root on the left side. This square root cancels with that square, and I'm left with root 80 is equal to c. They wanted to find to the nearest tenth of a unit, so let's convert it from the square root form by using the calculator. I can do the square root of 80 is equal to 8 point, they wanted the nearest tenth of a unit, so 8.9. So I can say 8.9 is equal to c, and there's my answer. So I just found 8.9 as that length. All right, let's keep going. In triangle RST, angle R is a right angle. If TR is equal to 6 and TS equals 8, what is the length of RS? Do not attempt this problem without drawing. So let's make sure that we draw. Here, I'll draw a triangle RST with angle R as the right angle. So I'll draw the triangle. Here's angle R, my right angle. And it really doesn't matter if I put S here, or S here, T here, or T here, because again, it only matters where my hypotenuse is for a Pythagorean theorem problem. So I'll put R, S, T, I'll do. And now we can just follow the directions that we have our little drawing. TR is 6, TS is 8, and now notice that we are not looking for the hypotenuse, we're looking for one of the side lengths. Well, that's not that big of a deal. I'll still use my Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but this time I already have c squared, it's 8. So I can say a squared plus 6 squared is one of my legs, should equal 8 squared, my hypotenuse. I can do a squared plus 36 is equal to 64. Take away that 36 from both sides, which gets me, I'll just do the calculator to make sure I don't make a mistake, and for the sake of time, 64 minus 36, not 39, 36, 28. So now I know that a squared is equal to 28. Now here, notice in the multiple choice answers, I don't have decimals. 28's not a perfect square, but there's kind of two ways you can do this. First, I need to get the a by itself, so I'll square root both sides, and I'm left with a equals root 28 as my answer. What I can do, and maybe this is kind of the quickest way, or if you're not familiar with the math behind it, I can just do square root of 28, and I know that's equal to, square root of 28 is 5.2915, and well, 10 is not that, 2 is not that, it must be one of these two. I can plug each of these into my calculator and figure it out. So I can do 2 times root 7, and oh, that looks right, that's 5.29. What about 7 root 2? No, that's 9.8 something, that's not right. So even just using the calculator, we can find this just kind of by trial and error. If you want to know kind of the nice way to simplify this, I can divide 28, I can divide it by 7, and it becomes 7 times 4. So this becomes root 7 times 4, which is the same thing as root 4 times root 7. Root 4, square root of 4 is just 2. Square root of 7 stays as it is, and we can find it that way as well. Either plugging it into the calculator or doing it this way will get you the correct answer. All right, let's move on to the final question. The Little People Daycare Center has a rectangular fenced play area behind its building. The play area is 30 meters long and 20 meters wide. Find to the nearest meter the length of a pathway that runs along the diagonal of the play area. So I have a rectangle, which means I've got right angles everywhere. One of my sides is 30, the other one is 20. It's a rectangle, so my opposite sides are equal, which means this is 30, this is 20, and we have a pathway going across a diagonal. We want to find that pathway. Again, I see a right triangle here, right triangle here. I've got 2 legs, I'm missing the hypotenuse. Let's do quick Pythagorean theorem. 20 squared plus 30 squared equals c squared. This is my c, it's my hypotenuse because it's on the opposite side from my right angle. I will definitely use a calculator for this one. So 20, where's the squared thing? Squared, plus 30 squared is equal to 1300 is equal to c squared. I'll do the square root to both sides. Square root cancels the exponent. And so then root 1300 is equal to, and they wanted to the nearest meter. And we found that c is equal to 36. And so that is our answer, 36 meters. I hope that was helpful in some Pythagorean theorem practice. Make sure to keep practicing these skills.